Well, good morning or good afternoon or good evening. Whenever you've kind of entered into this, that's great. I hope you've had a great day or are about to have a great day. Want to kind of get things started here with some kind of going back a bit and reflecting on something that Christy talked about last summer. And that is this idea of the Universal Design for Learning framework. And I wanted to kind of ease into our semester and ease into today with this idea of the Universal Design for Learning framework and something you reviewed a bit with Jodine and Michael and of course Christy, beginning with this idea of the myth of average. Oftentimes we're led to believe that there's this typical or average student. And actually when we look at the actual student, we may find variability. Excellent organizer, very structured. But when it comes to math, a bit of weakness. Writing, phenomenal writer. But then we take that to say, well, wait a minute, instead of looking at the individual, let's look across 20 individuals or 25 individuals, or maybe even 30 individuals, depending upon our class sizes. And we start to realize, oh my gosh, we have such variability amongst those youngsters. Or another way to think about it, well, has to do with shoes. Yeah, let's take a consideration of that. And I think I stole this from Todd Rose. But the idea here, folks, is, well, hey, welcome. Welcome to Notre Dame. You've all been introduced to Notre Dame and welcome because you're phenomenal athletes. Now you go ahead and think about what athletic competition you want to be. Maybe some of you are going to be soccer players, others are going to be lacrosse or basketball or maybe even football, maybe field hockey. Wonderful, you're here full scholarship, and the neat thing about it is you will be head to toe basically provided clothing for summer, winter, fall, spring. You'll be provided shoes, all that free because you're a phenomenal athlete and that's why you're coming here to Notre Dame. One little mix though is that we believe in average. And we believe that you're above average, but we believe in average. So therefore, we have this great contract with the shoe company that we're going to equip you all with shoes, but the size 8. Yep, size 8. So this idea of average hinges upon the fact that yes, you all are at size 8 shoe. Well, the challenge with that, as you think about it, is the fact of the matter is that, well, okay, some of us are size 10 and a half. Well, all of a sudden we've gone from a phenomenal athlete to someone who's going to, well, probably lose their scholarship. Anyone size 8, you're phenomenal, you're going to continue. Oh, what about 6 and a half? That's all right, we'll get an extra pair of socks. Maybe we'll put some socks or maybe we'll put some stuff to just pad up the front. But this idea of this myth of average, of course, you're like, of course we wouldn't do that. Of course we'd look at the variability of shoe size. Of course we'd give different shoes. And yet we often turns school-wise, we start with this curriculum that we say, okay, well here's the curriculum for everybody. Here's the content for everybody. Here's the textbook for everybody. Here's the structure of a school for everyone. Here's the structure of a classroom for everyone. And we realize, and very quickly often, we realize that, well, maybe we've created some barriers. So think of it this way. Think of this image here. Now you all know what this image is. You've all seen this image. Well, you haven't seen this image, but you see what the image is portraying. And many of you, as you stare and look at this, you'll say, I don't know what you're talking about, Sean. And yet, we've all seen it. And more importantly, as an instructor, I'm based the fact that, hey, it may be a side reading. It may be an activity I asked you to do last night. It may be something we did yesterday. I'm figuring we all have the same foundation. We've all connected. We all understand exactly what this is. And now I'm going to begin my instruction. So let's say it was an assigned reading last night. And so this represents the assigned reading. Now some of you are saying, I don't know what it is. I have no clue what you're talking about, Sean. And so you come into the day's activity not understanding at all about what I'm about to talk about. And of course, I'm assuming, oh, we all know what this is. We've all done the reading. We all understand it. We have a fluency of reading. We have a comprehension of reading. You understood the vocabulary. And yet many of you are struggling. So what I need to do is I need to make sure I give you variability. I need to make sure I give you options. I need to make sure that you're seeing this in a variety of different ways. So here we go. Folks, it's a cow. Well, I've just given you an additional way. So I've said there's a picture. It's a cow looking at you. Now some of you may be reflecting at this saying, oh, I see it. And others of you are like, I have no clue what you're talking about. So let me give you a little bit more of an option. There you go. It's a poor drawing there, but you'll see the face looking right at you. There are the 2 ears, there are the 2 eyes, there's the nose. So it's an outline of that. All right. And some of you may need additional options as well, but the whole idea is that there's barriers and we're trying to reduce those barriers. Now, a way of doing that, well, lots of different ways. So for example, let me give you a direct example here with QR codes. Now, QR codes are something you can create, very easy to create. They're often used in classrooms for a variety of different purposes. And well, here, let me give you an example.
We've got some websites that we visit often, and they're bookmarked, but people forget where they're bookmarked. So then people just try to go on Google, but then they forget how to spell them. So then we decided with a shortcut, QR codes. So this is how you do it. Now I'm just trying to find the QR code thing, and there it is. You just click on it simply, and then you hold it up in front of this little camera thing until it recognizes it. So now it's recognized it. You click on it, and there I am. We're QR code crazy.
Now, why did I let that little young lady from Australia or New Zealand introduce that to you? Well, the idea here is, let's say that I have an individual that has difficulty remembering the websites, or an individual that has difficulty typing, or an individual that's unorganized, or you go on with a host of different elements. And so what the QR code allows, as she just shared, is I can quickly grab, as you're seeing it's laminated, maybe it's sitting in an old recipe box. I simply grab that, I put it up to the camera, it takes me directly to the website, and there I go. That gives me access, that limits my ability to have to remember structure, typing, and the list goes on. So it's allowing for that variability, it's allowing for those options. Now what we're getting to is this idea of universal design for learning. In one last way, let's think of a dinner party. So you invite folks to a dinner party, you think of a menu, maybe you're going to do Italian, maybe you're going to do barbecue, maybe you're going to do Mexican, maybe you're going to do Indian, the list goes on. And you start thinking of different types of entrees you're going to have, maybe the appetizers, the drinks you're going to serve, the things of that nature. Now imagine if you go into it, and if I gave you a few minutes to think about it, you'd probably think of appetizers, the main menu, and dessert that would have everything from meat to vegetables to, probably bread to various things. You might have a margarita bar, you might have a variety of different beers, etc., etc. Now, the menu might look phenomenal, you create them for me, and then I start to let you know, oh gosh, but did you plan for variability? See, we have a number of folks that are recovering alcoholics, so hopefully we've modified in terms of the alcohol. What about the folks that are gluten-free? What about the folks that have peanut allergies? What about our vegans? What about our vegans and our vegetarians, which I think there's a little difference there. What about our folks that in terms of meat-wise, there's only certain meats they eat? What about folks that may be allergic to elements of fish? So now we're having to really plan for a great deal of variability. And it's really important. For example, peanut allergies, my goodness, we wouldn't want anyone to go into peanut shock. And in terms of gluten, we wouldn't want anyone to come away with sickness there, or the vegan, etc., and all those elements that go there. So, of course, when we think of our different menus, we want to think of a lot of different options, okay? And a lot of different components to allow for variability. And so what we're getting to is this idea of universal design for learning. And the concept of universal design for learning, if you remember from the module that you took a look at, it really reinforces the fact that the what of learning, the how of learning, and the why of learning. So 3 primary principles: multiple means of representation, multiple means of action expression, and multiple means of engagement. So for example, multiple means of representation, we're really looking at the what of learning. So are we providing information through different modalities? Are we allowing for variability in terms of language? Are we allowing for symbols? So for example, if we have an equal sign, are we allowing, I don't understand what an equal sign is. So are we using various ways to show equality? Math expressions, are we offering various ways to understand that? Are we offering options for comprehension, everything from interactive graphics to explicit prompts to visualization? Those are elements that would align itself to the what of learning. Now the how of learning gets at this ability to demonstrate what I know. And as the module emphasized back in the summer, this is all brain-based. This is literature, this is based on literature of what we learned about the brain and how we've learned about learning. So are we allowing for various ways for individuals to interact and convey what they know through, be it speech to text, to keyboarding, to writing? Are we allowing folks to express themselves in a variety of different ways? It may be through posters, it may be through papers, it may be through presentations, it may be through a variety of other options. And also, are we allowing for those challenges of organization, managing goals and things of that nature? Are we promoting and facilitating that? And finally, principle 3, kind of think of the engagement element. And here, are we providing options to recruit interest? Are we allowing folks to, in a way, enhance and maintain their grit? A lot of this might be through self-regulation. And finally, are we offering opportunities for self-regulation through checklists or models or structures or things of that nature that really facilitate that engagement? And of course, we know if we can engage a learner, we go a long way to get to the what and the how of learning as well. So another way of thinking about this and kind of wrap things up is the old GPS system. Now, many of us are still using GPSs through our phones. I use it regularly. But if we think about the GPS and think about how those offer, be it a traditional GPS or even through our phones, principle 1, think about that. So first of all, multiple means of representation. I get the visual aspect. I get a breakdown in terms of beyond the visual. I get a breakdown of the step by step by step by step. I also get it in terms of there's an audio output for that multiple means of representation of how I'm interacting with that map. But I also get to interact with it in a physical way. So for example, I can alter my directions from the visual to the map to map. I can get ahead if I want to, scrolling with my finger. And also it gives me arrows and things of that nature to kind of redirect. Finally, in terms of the engagement aspect, it gives me multiple places and decisions in terms of how I want to go. It allows me to hear it. It allows me to see it. It allows me to interact with it. So, for example, I can then, change. For example, if I change it in that I'm moving forward, and oh my gosh, I see a bunch of red. What are my alternatives? But also, how long am I sitting in the red? Oh, okay, not too far, not too long. Great. So all those things in terms of recruiting my interest and basically engaging me in the travel allows for me to, with this tool, again, get at principle 1, 2, and 3. Maybe not the best example, but an example to offer kind of the multiple means of representation and the like. And finally, think about this in terms of the overall direction routes from A to B. So I want to move from this place in Michigan from A to B, and I'm going to take basically route 131 and 31. Great. And let's think of that in terms of our traditional, I have an assessment, I have you write an essay for that assessment, and that's how I'm going to determine whether or not you understand what it is that I'm assessing you on. But UDL would say, there's more than A and B. There's a number of different routes. So instead of that essay, maybe it's that poster, maybe it's that video presentation, maybe it's that audio podcast. Maybe it's instead of an essay, maybe it's a multiple choice, maybe it's short answer, maybe it's other types of components. So it's giving me lots of different routes to get to that same B element, starting with A, but again, that flexibility, that variability, and allowing for multiple means, multiple routes. So think about that QR code. Think about that kind of a variety of ways to make those connections. We'll get started deeper into UDL, of course, but to me, the UDL framework is at the cornerstone of what we're trying to determine and what we're trying to proceed for here within our class for this semester and as we move on in terms of MTSS and evidence-based practice and the like. I hope this made a few connections for you and got us thinking again about some of the things that you were introduced to earlier in your coursework.